Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Bronfman and welcome to In the Know Baby Banter, where we'll be talking with newbie moms and experts about all the life-changing topics that come with motherhood. From pregnancy and postpartum wellness to balancing being a full-time mom and having a career. There's so much we have to talk about, so let's dive in. Hey Nicole.
Hi, Hannah.
Okay, guys, this is Nicole Berrie, founder of Bonberi. And if you don't know or already follow her, she is a mom of two adorable kids, Jude and C, and the founder of Bonberi, which is an amazing wellness nutritional site. You should go check it out. And she also has a shop here in New York City. So Nicole, obviously you are like all things like nutrition and diet and like healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to like tailor our conversation a little bit into, and maybe it's a bit selfishly because this is where I'm at right now with Preston and our journey of starting solids. But I want to ask you like how you kind of transitioned into solids with your kids and like flavors, because I feel like both of us are really passionate eaters.
Totally.
And yeah, and we love flavors and textures and all the things. And I like have this fear of Preston being a picky eater. Like I don't know if I would be able to handle that.
Yeah.
So like I wanted to hear maybe from you like like some best practices or things that you did to just like kind of expose like the variety young and like all those things. I feel like it's such an overwhelming moment.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. And like just right off the bat, I mean, I feel like we're both, like you said, like so we derive so much joy from food and nourishing ourselves, whether it's cooking or going out and everything. And so yeah, that was definitely one of my biggest, I guess, like values or focuses. I got super excited when I first had Jude. Now it's like almost 6 years ago. And I was like, he's going to eat everything and it's going to be great. And we're going to introduce all the spices early. So he's just my little like international kid who will eat anything. And I'll talk a little bit about that 5 years later. But 5 years ago when we were introducing solids, the first thing that I did, I started really simple. I wanted to introduce a little bit of very gentle fruits like mashed banana. I think banana was his first. Banana was his very first.
Okay.
And I just like, it was super ripe. I just mashed it up with like a fork and we tried that. And that was like so crazy, that reaction. And then we went into avocado. And I think that like, it's so hard to like remember because it was like so long ago now, but
I know.
basically we like set like a week where, and my like, excitement. I was like, I want to try this, I want to try that. But really like just to see how they're like digesting it, we did like a week of just banana. Then we did a week of just avocado. And then we did a week of just steamed sweet potato and like see how they did. And then I got like a little bit more into the blends. And I loved incorporating like a little dash of cinnamon in like sweet potatoes. Or if we were doing steamed carrots, I did like a little dash of cumin. Like definitely included a little bit of spice just to like activate their palate. And I'm a big proponent of including spices, obviously in my cooking. So I was like, why not just a little bit here and there?
Yeah.
So I definitely did that. I was very vigilant about cooking everything, obviously, like for him, like we used this, really amazing appliance. I don't know if you already have it, but it's the Baiba or Beba. It's a steamer and blender in one.
We just got it.
It's amazing. Like I literally used it everywhere. We would go on vacation. We would literally go to like Ibiza and it would take up like half of my suitcase, but I needed it with the like converters and everything. And it's so easy. You just steam it in the container and then you dump it in and then you blend it. And I love that. We used that for the first year so much.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, like I think that, do what also if you don't have time to do these things, then do what you can do. There's so many brands out there now, prepared foods, even like delivery programs like that use really clean ingredients, simple foods, and would literally make what you would make at home. So
totally.
If you do have the time, what we would do like the blends and then we would freeze it. The same brand has these little pods that you like silicone pods, and you just put them
Oh,
in the freezer and you
okay.
defrost as needed. So like we would do that. Um, but I think starting simple, like very,
Yeah.
very simple, and seeing how they acclimate, but don't be afraid of spices, like just like a little here and there.
How is it different between Jude and C on that journey to starting solids?
So it's so crazy having the second one because I think Jude was like two something when C was starting solids. And at that point, it's just like every man child for themselves. So, whereas Jude, I was like spoon feeding him till like so late in the game. C was like baby led weaning, like by accident, just kind of like, here's a banana, do what you will with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, because of that, I think she's a better eater and a more self-sufficient eater because I did the baby led weaning. It is like, I understand that it could be a little, scary to do like the baby led weaning because they're just eating on their own. But if you use like really soft things like I think avocado and ripe banana are like the perfect baby led weaning things. Um, but yeah, like I would be too busy like with Jude, who was a little more like needy in the toddler phase, and she
Right.
would just be eating herself, and it's more about discovery. So I'm like a big proponent of baby led weaning. I think it's awesome, but also like I understand being a first time mom and like you want to make everything perfect and you want to make the perfect purees and you want to feed it, you know what I mean? So it's like a mix of like both.
Totally. I feel like for me, what I'm more like scared about is like I feel like Preston like still doesn't really know how to like swallow
Yeah.
properly. So
Yeah.
I'm like a little scared of him choking.
Totally.
But like it's like not just choking on like baby led weaning like a finger size thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm even scared of him like semi choking like on a puree. Like people say that obviously at 5 months you're totally cool to
Yeah.
start. Some people say 6 months.
Yeah.
Some people start at 4 months. I think it's like whatever. Every baby's so
And also, you're
different.
gonna watch his cues. Like for Jude, we started at 6 months. I was like, I don't want to start before 6 months. And with C, I mean, she sees me eating, she sees her brother eating, and at like 5 months, even 4.5 months, she's like, "What is that? Like, I want the food. I want the food." So we started
Yeah.
a little earlier with her. So definite. I think that a lot of books and say this that when the baby shows cues that they are ready, then they're ready,
Yeah.
and obviously you want to start like with age appropriate things and start with the purees and soft things. But it's really about like less about listening to be like, okay, that 6 month mark or that 5.5 month, like versus like see how, what are they showing you.
Yeah, and Preston's very enthusiastic about like wanting to eat when he
Yeah.
sees like we're eating. I
Sure.
mean, he's also like gets so hyped when he sees his bottle. Like he's like it's insane. He also is like fully holding his own bottle, which
That's
is
so
like
cute.
ridiculous. I'm like,
There's
okay,
no problem
slow
with being a
down.
really good baby led weaner
You
if he's
think?
holding some bottle. Yeah.
I feel like the baby led weaning also helps with like hand eye coordination and
Totally.
like that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm into it. I'm just like like still so I'm like
And you could do like a
nervous.
mix of both, for some reason, like with certain things, whether it's like exclusive breastfeeding or pumping, exclusive pumping and all, like, like formula, and also there these seem to be these camps that you have to fall into, or we were just talking about like, sleep training or not sleep training. Like for me, I was as a mom, like it served me better to not have any like labels and just be like, okay, like today we're baby led weaning, today we're today we're like sleeping, co-sleeping. It's like it's okay to like go and it's kind of just like easier. It gives you like less of like stress to just be like, let's just try this. Okay, it's not working. Let's try that, and things will
Right.
shift.
Right.
Something of that, like as a mom, like in the very beginning with the first, it's like you think that a phase, whatever that phase may be, is going to be forever, and you're like, oh
Right.
my god, how am I going to like survive or anything? And all of a sudden, the next day, it changes, and you're like, that was a phase, and like you're like, oh, if had I only known that that was just a phase, I would feel much better.
Totally.
So with
Totally.
like any of this, I just feel like, yeah, like maybe you start with the purees and then you shift into the baby led, or yeah,
Totally. I really like that perspective because I feel like you're right. There are so many different like camps that new moms I feel like are told that they have to fit into X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
squares. And like I feel like also some of my like new mom friends are also like very much like in their camps and like
Sure.
preach that. And I
Yeah.
think for us, like the flexibility and like, you know, trying to just figure out what works best for us
Mm-hmm.
is like a huge part of like the journey. And so I'm not like I'm just also like kind of going with the flow.
Totally. And like
Yeah.
I am a different mom than I thought I would be. Like before you become a mom, you have this picture of what motherhood's going to be. You have a picture of what your kids are going to be. And actually, like I feel like some mutual friend Latham Thomas
Oh yeah.
told
Yeah.
me when I was pregnant with Jude, when I first was pregnant, she had the best advice, and she was just like, "Oh, I was pregnant, and I think we'll like get to talk about like what I was eating when I was pregnant, but I was like all over the place. Like I like was sick, and I didn't want any like of the normal things I wanted." She's like, "This is just the first lesson that your child is teaching you is that you are not in control." And I come back to that literally 6 years later. Like I'm like, you have a vision of what kind of mother you're going to be or what motherhood is, and your kids have a different plan, and it's like the best lesson to show that you're just no longer in control. And it was really, I needed that because I didn't realize how much I was like I was thriving when I became pregnant, and I thought I had it all figured out, but what I realized is that I needed somebody to like change things up and show me that, you know, sure, like when you're just taking care of yourself, your life, you can really curate your life to be perfect and as you want it, which is such a luxury and such a lovely thing. But once the kids come, it's a different story. And
Totally.
so that was a big lesson for me.
Okay, so I want to go back a little bit and talk about nutrition while being pregnant
Yeah.
and what kinds of things you were eating. Was there a difference between the pregnancies and what you were craving and wanting?
Yeah.
And like, I can quickly just tell our viewers because I feel like I know how you eat, which is like very intuitively.
Yes.
And you are very seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
You're also very much about food combining, which I love. And I'll just quickly, I mean, or I'll let you kind of just give a
Sure.
quick
Yeah. Yeah.
overview of the food combining.
Totally. So like for the past, I think over 15 years, I guess 15 years ago, I was I didn't grow up like as a hippy dippy macrobiotic born girl. I was very much like a normal, like Americanized. I had a normal Americanized childhood, but I started to like suffer from all of like kind of like chronic things in my 20s that I was depressed. I was just carrying a lot of like weight emotionally, physically, spiritually that I knew intuitively that I wanted to shed. And I was introduced, you know, kind of serendipitously to the world of plant-based living, juicing, lots of produce, not like austere, like Spartan juicing, like juice fasting, but more just like the integrating an alkaline lifestyle into
And dense nutrition.
and dense nutrition, yeah, and in the form of lots of fruits and vegetables, abundance, and abundance is the thing that was lacking in my life. I think for the 22 years prior, it was all about diet or restriction or punishment, whereas this was the opposite of just infusing your life with so much abundant whole foods, and that changed everything for me. And I really never looked back. And within that, there's a concept of food combining, which just really just means it helps digestion, it helps circulation and energy, it optimizes energy just by pairing certain things in certain ways. And it sounds complicated, but really there's just these like very broad principles that you can then work within to like get really creative and play. And so like that's kind of the life I was living when I got pregnant. Like I said, I was like really feeling like at the top of my game, you know, physically, spiritually, and all of that, which by the way is not everyone, but that was my like experience. And then I got pregnant. And then like literally I was never more sick. Like for the first 2 weeks, I think 9 weeks was the worst part of it. 9 weeks was the height of my sickness. Like I could not even hold down toast. Like I was
Wow.
so sick. Like I don't know if you were nauseous, but I literally was. I almost thought I had to like go to the hospital because like there was a week where I like couldn't keep down anything, and I was like this close, and then it just like literally went away. But
Oh, wow.
I remember having a moment at that 9 week time, or like maybe 10 weeks when I started to get my appetite. All I wanted was Triscuits. Like Triscuits, I don't even know why, but like Triscuits. Like I don't even like Triscuits, but that's like the only thing I could think of. So I got those like, vegan back to nature Triscuits, like the healthy Triscuits. And what it awoke in me was this insane guilt and compulsion. And just on a side note, is that in my teens, I suffered from eating disorders. I suffered from binging and bulimia, and something that I healed, actively healed, and worked very hard to heal. But all of these compulsions and feelings came up during that time. And I was like, whoa, this is insane. Like I'm starting to like fear food again and fear like what that's going to do to my body. And I started Googling eating disorder and pregnancy because I was like, why isn't there more like conversation around this?
Yeah.
And the only thing that came up was like weird like physical things, like how are you feeling during pregnancy, but nothing like addressing like the emotional aspect of former compulsive eaters when they get pregnant. And so for
Wow.
me, that's still something that's not talked about enough. And that was a huge, and going back to what Latham says, you're not in control anymore. That was like a lesson that I needed to learn again, is that when your body physically is craving things that are not in your usual repertoire, what do you do with that? Especially if you
Right.
come from compulsive.
Yeah, that
So
seems like it would
being,
be really triggering.
yeah, very triggering, and just being comfortable in the discomfort. Because
Right.
pregnancy for me was uncomfortable. Like I was not one of those like pregnant goddesses like in like you sorry but like you literally were like the most glowing like person ever, like you like it's I mean I was just like not feeling it at all.
Yeah.
And so it was being comfortable in that discomfort, and I honestly that was true for both pregnancies. The second pregnancy was, I had a little more, I was more prepared to feel for that kind of period where your body is like that in between period. There's in
Yeah.
between period of pregnancy where you conceive, and like I think to the second trimester where you don't necessarily look pregnant. You feel like a little
Right.
more just like tired and all of those things. And for me, it was a lesson of just kind of grounding down and knowing um, that your body is craving the things that it's craving for, because it's growing a human being in your body, and
Right.
just to have faith and trust in what your body is craving and listening to it. And that was something that I really leaned into at first. At first, it was scary to lean into it, but it was something I
Right.
had to do. And that has made me a better and more understanding person. And someone who talks about wellness and like recipes and stuff like that, it's important for someone to go through that so that they understand where everyone's coming from. It's
Of
not about
course.
like just simply having more green juice and vegetables. It's about you know taking into account that there are outside circumstances that don't that change things and make it difficult to adhere to a normal to other healthy practices.
For someone who has, dealt with eating disorders and compulsion, and do you actively think about how you are feeding your kids so that they don't have um, the same relationship that you felt when you were younger with food? Because
Mm.
I also grew up, I did grow up with a hippy dippy mom, and I actually was raised vegetarian until I was 18. And my grandmother suffered from anorexia her entire life. And I
Mm.
also grew up in the dance world. So I was
Mhm.
really like bombarded with eating disorder behavior at a
Yep.
really young age,
Yeah.
and I actually personally recognized that at a young age, and I knew that that behavior was not something that I wanted to partake in, which
Yep.
is ultimately why I ended up getting out of the dance world.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was kind of like an anomaly at a young age, knowing that for myself.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, if, are there certain things that you think about, or the ways in which you talk about food with your
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
that you are kind of trying to create this, better relationship? Because as I think many of us know, like, being in a relationship with food is like, a lifelong relationship,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think there are a few things. I think that first and foremost, like I have come to learn like how to derive true joy in feeding myself, in cooking for myself, in the foods. Like I really do feel that like I've just really done the work and like have healed old wounds. And I'm here to say that like for those people who are still in it, who think that you'll never get out of it, because that's how I thought. There was like a decade of my life that I was in it. I thought I'd never get out of it. And I'm here to say that you absolutely can if you do the work. And so now, like when I'm cooking, when I'm making foods, it's always with joy. And like that is number one. Like I actually don't think too much of like, how am I going to word this? Because then there's already like concern and fear around food. You know what I mean? And so it's very like second nature, which is something I didn't have growing up. Like my mom, like also and it's different because in Asian culture you don't really talk about your feelings, so things I believe were going underneath the surface that I intrinsically felt or subconsciously felt. So I think it's all very much the energy that you're putting into how you're approaching food. But really for me, like compulsion, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or food, or overeating, or over shopping, or over Instagramming, whatever, it's not necessarily the result of like how someone's talking about it. It's essentially like it's an escape, and it's running from whatever feeling or fear or pain, and it's overdoing whatever on top of that so you don't feel your pain. So for me, it's more important to not, when my kids are upset, to let them cry and say, like, if my son's sad, I'm always like, it's okay to be sad, and we sit and are sad and everything. And those are the things that I think are going to affect whether or not your relationship with food or anything really. And so so the conversation about like, oh, are you instilling these thoughts in your kids about, I don't believe that any disordered eating or any disordered behaviors come from the ways anyone talks about something. I think it's essentially a result of either running away from our fear or feelings or not dealing with those things, and it manifests in different ways, whatever our lives mean. So for me, it's more important of being present as a parent and letting our kids feel their feelings and not try to do anything over them, whether that's food or anything else. If that makes sense.
I love that. And I see, so much of your life because you choose to share stuff on Instagram. And, I see that C is in the kitchen with you all the time. And like, she's your little helper, and she's like chopping and like grating and like taste testing all the things.
And by the way, like, so she is that, but the reason why we don't see my older son is because just what you're saying, your fear and my fear has manifested into a 5-year-old. Jude would eat everything when he was little. We made him dolls, vegetable soup, all the things. And at 4 years old, he just became the most picky eater ever. And it's literally my fear manifested. And it's also, again, going back to that lesson, it's like, I'm not in control. This is the lesson I need. You have a vision that your kid's going to be like Garden of Eden, eating everything, like just miss like whatever, but that's just not the case. And you know what? That's the lesson that I needed to learn. So I think that for some people who see on Instagram, like, all these like kind of like visually perfect families that are like, making acai bowls for dinner or something, and like, oat chia waffles and all those things. And we had a good year of that with Jude, but then he was like, no, I'm done. So I think that it's just going with the flow and just like following their intuition. And yes, C is like my little, like she truly will have anything. But it's also not being hard on yourself if what's happening at home is not like reflective of what you're seeing on like, Instagram or wherever.
No, I think that's such a good reminder to moms everywhere that like, you cannot compare yourself to the people that you see on the gram. Like, you got to remember that, what people choose to share are mostly like the pretty moments,
Yeah.
right? It's rare to see those not so pretty moments, which I think both you and I are good about talking about, because I think
Yeah.
it is really important for our communities to understand that it's not, not everything is just like shiny and new.
I honestly feel that like you are able to, it's your life, so it's like what you choose to share, like as long as it's true, and you're not like trying to like paint a picture, but like there's some things that are that are just like family stuff, you know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
need to share my kids like tearing down the walls and like screaming. Like nobody necessarily wants to see that. Maybe they do, but like, like it's okay to be present in those moments and not feel like you have to like also be a documentarian, like sharing that as well. Because you know what? Like we
I'm
all
so
go
on that
through
page with
it,
you. I'm so on that page with you. There are days where I would just like rather not pick up my phone,
Yeah,
and like I'm cool with that, and I don't
totally.
even think twice about it. And I think that's actually a really good reminder for a lot of moms, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I think it can also feel overwhelming that like you need to keep up, or like I don't know, I see like so many new moms who have like all of their content out and like all the things.
sure.
I'm like, how, like I can't even, like I can't even put up a story today. Like I just like I'm so, you know what I mean? Like I just,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
just
and
got to do you.
and that's absolutely okay because like the energy, it's like protecting your energy of like who needs you the most. Obviously, your kids and yourself, and so if I just feel like if it's something that it's gonna empower or inspire, like that's kind of like my rule of thumb. Like, is this gonna be helpful? And not like empower and inspire, and everything has to be like the most amazing thing, but like, is this helpful or is it not helpful for someone?
Totally.
And sometimes there'll be the things where it's like, oh, this is fun and cute and I just want to share it. Okay, fine. But like for the most part, my rule of thumb is like, is this gonna like help someone in some tiny, tiny way? Like even if it's funny and it makes them laugh, or if it's not, then like, no, not worth it for me.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I always try and think like, like how can I get this message across without being like triggering or anything like that, because
totally.
um these are all just like such sensitive topics, and everyone has such a personal relationship with these things that
Yeah,
you and I talk about, because, wellness, it's a lifestyle, it's how we choose to live our lives, and, there's trolls and judgment everywhere, but it's
mhm.
really not about that. It's like you said, it's about bringing abundance into your life.
Yeah,
So,
and it's the
um,
little things. It's not like all or nothing. Like for me, like once I got out of that pregnancy phase where I was like craving things that I just, I had all the like I would only eat bagels and toast and Triscuits and all that. And that was, looking back on that, yes, like I needed to do that. My body needed to do that. And then
yeah,
afterwards, yeah, I started craving the things that I was like that I thrive on, like the green juice, like the smoothies and the salads. And for me, like like non-negotiables like are like your non-negotiable should be something that you want to do, like if that makes sense, if it brings you
yeah,
joy. And so like for me, I always used to use that term non-negotiable, but then I was like, it's now so infused into my life that I want to have more like something green every day. Like it's not even I don't even consider that because it's what makes me
it's
tick, and it's
right,
like
right.
what brings me joy. And so that's just like my life. So I think that finding the things that are going to literally like zip you up and bring you joy and energy, whatever that is, um do that every day,
Yeah,
do that one time every day. And then yeah, then there's the things like, okay, I want to like move every day, but maybe that's your thing, you know what I mean? Or I want to
yeah,
sit, and or I want to do this, and I want to dry brush. Like it doesn't have to be all of those things.
right.
It's the one thing that like truly feeds your soul and body and minds, like. And so for me personally, that is nourishing myself, right? So like
Yeah,
that's finding the foods and the juices and the things that really like literally level me up truly, like internally. um and then and also there's the days that you won't get that, like whether you're traveling or whether it's just an insane day at work or the kids are just manic. And
yeah,
knowing that there will always be tomorrow. Like
totally.
it's okay.
Nicole, do you have anything on bonberry.com about kids and eating and solids and things like that?
I don't have like a like like a tutorial, but I do have a little recipe. So if you go on like
You
the
do?
baby section, yeah.
Okay.
There's some purees. One puree that I love doing just like real quick is like the nut-free, cheese-free pesto, which actually incorporates herbs perfectly. And you just steam zucchini, broccoli, cauliflower with a little olive oil. This might be a little too complicated for Preston right now, but in like a few months.
Yeah.
And fresh basil. And it's like a creamy pesto that you can do just as a puree for the kids, or when they get older you can put it on like brown rice pasta. I still make it for myself, and it's like such a hit.
Okay, well, everyone should go check out bonberi.com, and if you don't already follow Nicole, you should definitely do that. It brings me so much joy to watch you and your family, so thank you for sharing with us. We are so grateful.
Yes,
And
we need
thank
to
you for
get
taking the
Preston
time
and
to
Ski and everyone together.
Oh, I know, we really do. And just thank you so much for having this chat with me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you head to In the Know Parenting for more. I'm Hannah Bronfman, and I'll see you on another episode of In the Know Baby Banter.